Hi guys, it is episode 10 and I am so excited. I have a phenomenal guest on for episode 10. Thank you so much. And I would just let you introduce yourself. If you want me to introduce you a little bit, this is Marquett. He has gone viral I've watched him on viral clips from the Whatever podcast, Fresh and Fit. I've watched some of your debates. You are very intelligent and I think our society needs your wisdom. And so I'm just here to interview you. And if you want to give a little bit more of an introduction of yourself.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
The basics are I'm in software. That's where I built my career. Went to the University of California, Berkeley, Johns Hopkins Masters. Been in business since then. I've been in a couple different industries. Nonprofit, which I don't recommend anyone go into.
Okay.
I've been in a lot of different sides of business, hardware, software, textiles, leather goods. You name it, I claim it. So that's what I really enjoy. And that's what I do now is I teach people about business, and I talk a lot about morality, especially how you should conduct yourself in the modern era. As a guy in software, what I've realized is that software and technology impacts how we execute morality today. And so those are the things that have been of interest to me on YouTube.
Okay, awesome. Well, I've definitely watched you more in debates, and this will definitely not be a debate. I will not be debating you, but I more just want to pick your brain and to ask you questions because just watching you and I love that you said you speak about morality and stuff, and I've learned a lot from even just watching your stuff, and so thank you for that. And so I just want to pick your brain, ask you some questions, and actually have you just break down, these things, these real issues, and where it's rooting from and everything. So thank you again for coming on today. And then you said you're into like leather and you have that type of business.
Right. So everything I'm wearing, including my underwear, are all produced by me.
Wow. Yeah, you look great.
I appreciate that. Yeah. What I tell men is that entrepreneurship is not only important for your financial freedom, but if you actually want to be a leader, if you want to be a boss, if you want to be in control, then first start with being a boss of yourself, right? Which is to say not being an employee if you can manage it. Some people will work a job, but if you can manage entrepreneurship, you absolutely should. You should have your family involved. And so I try to be a good example of that. It also goes back to community. You could wear Nikes, but have you ever met the founder of Nike? No. I'd much rather wear clothes that I produced or that a friend of mine produced so that the dollar stays within people that I respect and share values with.
Wow. I'm so excited about today's conversation. Thank you for that. Thank you for that knowledge. So I'm going to get straight into it since we only have like a little bit of like an hour. So I know that you've traveled outside of the U.S. from listening to you talk, right? So I want to get your input on the women in Western society versus the women that you've seen in other countries and those differences that you've seen.
It's a touch more complex than, say, the women in the West or the United States versus women elsewhere. And so I'll hopefully give a little bit of nuance. But simply put, you're dealing with culture. Like the human female is the same no matter where you find her, but the veneer of culture does matter at a level. So most recently I was in Krakow, Poland. I go to Poland a lot for a couple business items. And on Sunday, pretty much everything is shut down. So on Sunday, now, you can't go out to a lounge. You're not about to hit the mall. You can't go shopping. And so a lot of the activities that you would do circled around consumerism or entertainment or hanging out with your friends, they don't exist. So you have to have a family.
Man.
If you don't have a family, you're going to be alone. And so their society has religion. That's why it's shut down on Sunday. Is that the Sabbath? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I think Saturday's the Sabbath, right?
Okay, help me out.
Yeah.
It depends on who you are, right? But Sunday is the day of rest, right?
Yes.
And because they have a religious society, they rest on Sunday and it's a family day. And as a result, you have women that are very much so family oriented and they're used to and programmed to be circled around family on that day. So that's one major thing. Another thing is the level of being feminine and also not being sexualized is different. I remember I was in Oujda, which is a city in the northeast of Morocco. And I was there in a very small restaurant that basically was almost like an apartment. And I was sitting there eating, and there's such strong culture here. We're devoid of culture. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
That I was kind of eating the wrong way according to their culture. And somebody's auntie, she was like at the next table, she like looked over and she like kept peeping me. And then she just gets up, walks over, grabs some of this bread and like, swoops up some of this Moroccan dish and feeds it to me.
Wow.
Like I was her baby or something, which is not a sexual thing. It's not anything like that. It's just like, hey, in our culture, this is how we do it. and I'm a mom, I have kids, and I'm going to mother on you because you're here and you're within our culture.
Wow.
And those things are, largely non-existent in the West. And then the last piece is like, it's not such a sexualized society. When you don't have a sexualized society, women are in their proper place. Women have a false form of power due to sex here. They can utilize sex to gain great wealth quickly, and they can use sex to have great influence. They can sleep their way to the top of a hierarchy. Whereas in other societies where women have to keep their clothes on, women don't engage in sex work, they occupy a more reasonable but honest and honorable position in the society. So they have a realistic self-view. For example, as you know, I run a podcast. I'm going to do a dating podcast this Wednesday, and women will DM saying, "Hey, can I be on the podcast?" Right?
Right.
Now, this is not radio. Mm-hmm. It's visual.
Right. They can see you. Yeah.
Well, the women that are messaging, some of them, it's like, "Shorty, like, do you realize that you're not a TV look, right? Overweight, like just super, like much older." Not to say that you can't be older, but it's like designed around a podcast appealing to a young male audience. You could tell that these women have no sense of reality. Why is that? Ooh. Because they're sexualized, and because you have a lot of male perverts in our society. They keep giving them sexual attention. The woman interprets sexual attention as, I'm generally attractive, which might not be the case. You might be attractive enough for a guy to sleep with and never take you in public.
Right.
Whereas women in these other societies, men engage them out of genuine interest. Like if you're in the Middle East, or if you're in certain places in sub-Saharan Africa, or in Asia and Korea, where I lived for a couple years, they'll engage you only if they're legitimately interested in you.
Right.
So if you're overweight and unattractive and covered in tattoos, you never get deluded into thinking that you're appealing. So you exist in the world based on reality, whereas chicks here, like, she thinks she a bad bee. She wearing a crop top, stomach hanging out, stretch marks, whole nine. And so we're dealing with a lot of nonsense. But where does it root from? It roots from weak males. We like to blame the females, but it's really these weak males out here.
Yes. I like that you talk about both. I sorry, don't mean to even cut you off or anything, but just watching you speak, that the men are fetishizing over, right. I hope that's the right word, but over women that are overweight and things like that. And so it creates this ego and this pride, and then they rate themselves as 10s and stuff. And it was very humbling to watch because, even with my own husband, like, I was like rating myself. I was like, okay, so I would be like a 6, a solid 6, that's slightly above average. If you're actually thinking about it logically, right? Like, I'm either like a 5, like average, or maybe if I'm, in the best shape and I'm trying my very, very best, maybe I could get to a solid 6. So rating yourself as like a 10, on a scale when you are, it was great. I like that you guys, you view life as on a hierarchy, and I think women don't at all. Go ahead, sorry.
I think you're right. I think it's in fact natural that women don't view life in hierarchy and men do. But what's problematic in our society is that females don't understand the difference between males and females. They want the male to be like them.
Yes.
And sadly, some of these males are like them. The beauty of a woman viewing things in an egalitarian way is this. Say you have children, you got 4 children. Some of them don't quite measure up. One's smarter than the other, one's better looking, one's more athletic. Moms is going to treat you all equally. That's why moms are great, and a mother's love is pure. A good woman's love is so pure. Your father, you got 3 boys and one can really hoop. You might accidentally show some favoritism. You're like, man, bro can really shoot the rock, and that's what you loved when you were a young man. You loved basketball, you loved boxing, and you might favor this kid. Mom is going to make everyone feel good, raise up everyone's self-esteem, and that's a great balance between the two. But your father's also going to push you because he knows about hierarchy and he wants you to be able to move up. Mom is going to love on you and care for you and give you a different kind of self-esteem. Dad's going to give you confidence. So these things are different. In other societies, people recognize and respect the differences, whereas here you have women who expect men to be like women, and also as a woman, they want to be like a man, and they think that they can compete with the man, which is untrue and problematic.
Wow. How did we get there?
Ooh, I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
The short version is that in the United States of America, we know that it is essentially a society started by very entrepreneurial religious zealots who were white males, Protestant white males. And when they started to fall, that's when the society started to fall. We can see the suffragettes and their movement as kind of the beginning of the end. For example, we know we used to have a moral society when our government said we're going to have prohibition, which was we shouldn't allow you all to drink alcohol. Why? Because alcohol is generally a negative thing, has bad outcomes, right? Drunk driving, things like this, domestic violence. And then the society, we could see that the society was sick because the society raged against it and they had to repeal the law. You even had people going into government who were formerly criminals. For example, the Kennedy family, his father became wealthy from bootlegging, which is the same thing that Al Capone, the famous gangster, did.
Wow.
And so when you find that the government becomes wicked, the people who create the laws are also wicked, then of course the society falls shortly after that. And then you have the female, so the white male becomes weak, the white female becomes stronger. And then so you've created a situation wherein we are not in a patriarchy, we become in a matriarchy. And even though it might appear that we have males leading the society, in fact, if you look at the legal and political structure, you find that the female is greatly favored. Things like alimony. What sense does it make in a society that was based on Christian values that we honor divorce so much that we'll pay the woman who's not with a man?
Right.
It doesn't even make any logical sense that you should pay for something that you're a woman who's not caring for you or under your leadership. So those are the things that signal at the end. But this occurs always. When you have a society that becomes opulent and flush with wealth, they become immoral. It is actually important that people work, and you give some people too much free time. You put them in the leisure class, then they do evil. That's why you have people who are addicted to pornography. You have young men who are addicted to video games and think it's okay when it's really despicable and it's a waste of time. And so there's a lot of things that have to be fixed, and it's even more challenging in a high-tech society. For example, women complain like, you expect me to go to work and cook and clean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, shorty, like chill. Like my grandmother did all of that, but it was harder because you have like a dishwasher. Grandma ain't used dishwashers.
Wow, yeah.
You have a box that you put clothes into and they magically clean themselves. You don't even clean them, shorty. My grandma used a washboard. What you know about it, right? It's like you're a lazy broad. Like you're legitimately lazy.
Yes.
And especially if you're married or dealing with a wealthy man, it's like, baby, like you barely even clean. I got the cleaners come through every 2 weeks. What are we talking about?
Right.
Like we're eating Michelin restaurants like 3 times a week, like you barely do anything. Why do you think your life is hard? It's not. You're deluded and you're mentally unwell.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Thank you for breaking that down. Wow. So my next question, too, to just add to it is, then what are some of the lies that women are being told today, and how are they being programmed? Just to add, because you did bring in some of those.
Right. What are some of the lies? You're the same as a man. I don't want to use the term equal. It's better for mathematics. But if you say you're the same as a man, no, you're not the same at all, actually. In fact, women, especially when they're in their natural state, we know that they're inclined to emotion and they're filled with love, which is one of the most beautiful things about the human female, which would mean that they can be easily tricked. Like, I don't know if it works nowadays because women are so grimy, but back in the day, I remember you're a young boy in high school, you tell shorty you love her, like, you about to get what you want out of her because that's what she's seeking is. That's what women are about. Now they're in the streets so much, I don't think it even matters. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at mate selection, women are terrible at mate selection.
Yes.
And they need their fathers to give a perspective on mate selection. So you're the same as a man. No, you're not. You're more emotional. Weak males today are also emotional. You're not good at mate selection. Women are, the science indicates that earlier in life, they're not great at mathematics. They develop their mathematics skills later. They have excellent language skills earlier in life. Males don't, which means you have to have an understanding of his ability to communicate is actually not as good as yours. Women use more language. Women can see a wider spectrum of color, and they can also hear at a greater level, which is better for raising children, they're better at interpreting faces, which is great because children don't have language when they're very young. And so the ability of a woman to understand and to communicate is much greater than a male. So when you're talking to your man and he experiences breakdowns in his ability to express, or better yet, listen, you notice that's where we fall down when we can listen. If you don't have any understanding for that and you expect them to be as good as you or even to put in as much effort, it's generally not going to happen. And you have to be comfortable with that. But here's the most important thing with women that I really want them all to understand, and this is a dark truth, I call it. You cannot live your life like a man. For example, a woman who's my age, I consider her almost dead. Like, you are old, shorty. Like, you almost dead. But at my age, I can still do everything that I could do when I was 18. I can still run a 6.5 minute mile. I can still box 15 rounds. I can do 30 push-ups. I can run 13 miles. And I'm still attractive to women who are 18 all the way up to 80.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, we were just talking about this.
So I got time. I'm in no rush whatsoever. Conversely, a woman at my age, as I said, she almost dead. I wouldn't even look in her direction. It's like, shorty, you need to go on the side. Don't you got 3 kids? You should be busy right now. You know, which is to say, women are going through significant changes over their life, which I don't know if we're talking about it enough, and even men don't understand. Like, for example, there's 2 major things we need to understand. Number 1, childbirth, and then number 2, menopause. So childbirth. If I have a child right now, or even 30 children right now, I'm still going to look like this. And women will still be with me. Shout out to Future. Like, he got like 9 baby mamas. They still lining up. It doesn't even matter to them, right? But a woman with 9 baby daddies is radically different. Like, Future has 9 baby mamas. He's still at the top of the food chain and chicks are lining up. The analog, a woman with 9 baby daddies, people are like, you're dirt, shorty. Like, and it's just, you're going to keep on stepping lower and lower to add more, which is to say this. When you have a kid, your body's going to change in a bad way. Your vaginal elasticity is not going to be the same. I used to manage a program at Johns Hopkins Medical. It's not going to be the same. You can go on Google and read lies, but it's not the same. In fact, I hate to be graphic, but I want women and men to understand this.
Absolutely.
You're aware that the vagina can tear during childbirth, like literally tear.
Down to the boot. Yeah.
That's right. It will not be the same afterward, which is to say the man who put that child in you, and that child who destroyed your body at a level, stick with that man, because he has understanding and sympathy for the difference in your body, because he was a part of that, because you carried his child.
Man.
Me, I don't have any sympathy for it. I'm like, shorty, why is your stomach got all these wrinkles and like stretch marks? It's like an empty water balloon. Like half the water's gone. It's like all wrinkly. I don't want to deal with that. I find that disgusting. It's not my kid that did that. I don't even want to deal with you. And if I did for some strange reason deal with you, it would be only in a carnal manner for a very short amount of time. I could never truly value you over time. That's because I have so many options. I would never value you. Now, there might be a guy who would, but that's a guy that's low on the food chain that you don't really want. So when you have your greater values, your youth, your beauty, your respectability, your reputation, utilize it to get the best guy and stay with that guy.
Yeah.
So that was the childbirth thing. So let's set that aside. Now, menopause. As you're going through, you're going to experience vaginal dryness and discomfort. You're going to experience, in some cases, women will lose hair. You're going to experience changes in your emotion and personality. You're going to experience infertility, inability to have children, all things that are very negative. Is a guy going to want that over time? No, you got to lock in a guy early before you experience menopause who's going to honor the fact that you've been serving him over time, honor the fact that you're the mother of his child, and stay with you despite these changes that, frankly, are not positive. Like, if we're sitting here right now and you're like, hey, Marquette, how's your temperature? I'm like, I'm really comfortable. You're like, oh, it's so hot in here. It's so hot in here. Turn on the AC. Well, now you're making me uncomfortable because you're having hot flashes, which are a part of menopause.
A lot of emotions, too.
Exactly. And it's all negative things. We just have to be honest. Like, none of it is good. Now, what do you call the male version of menopause? Right, there's no name for it because it doesn't exist.
No.
It doesn't exist.
No.
You might have minor reduction in testosterone levels, but otherwise, men, you're largely going to be the same. You're going to continue on being a happy, healthy, wealthy man.
Yeah.
Which is to say that you can continue doing what you're doing, especially if you're successful.
Yeah.
So as a woman, if you think you're going to be the same as a man and you want to play that game like, oh, yeah, well, Marquette, you doing this? Like, okay, cool. Try to be like me. You want to live like James Bond? Let's see how that works out over time.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And I don't say that to be rude or impolite to women. I say that to shock them into reality, to say, baby, I got love for you. I don't want you to be without a man, without a protector. I don't want you to get old and be alone. I don't want you to be financially strapped and have to depend on the government and live like an animal.
Wow. Yeah. And one thing that you said, just to add, there were so many thoughts going through my head. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that breakdown was great. You said on a podcast that you have to be more harsh today. Like, the shock value is good. That's what gets a lot of people to listen. And some people, it will fall on deaf ears. It will. But then some people like me, or some people like women like me who are trying to learn and grow and I'm married. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. And I got married young. I try to lock that down.
That's the key right there.
I was like, I'm not going to be out here in these streets. No. But my husband, he guides me, he leads me, and he's very, no, you're not doing this. No, you're not doing that. So I'm learning to just take orders. You know, I've learned to take orders. So when you're listening to other people, I have open ears. And then there's some women that have just gone through so much trauma and their ears it's blocked out. And so you have to be so harsh because it's like, I'm going to get this through your thick skull, or maybe it'll hit you 5 years from now when you remember this conversation and you've gone through something where you're open and willing to be a little bit more humble. So, so just a little bit about that, like having to be a little bit more harsh today.
Well, I want those watching to realize that me being harsh in a podcast is not the same as you talking to your woman on an individual basis. Just as women want men to be like them, sometimes you have men who want women to be like them. And so you have all these red pill content creators, and they're basically nerds that women didn't want, and now they're raging against women in a public sphere. And as a result, you might see someone like myself being what you might describe as harsh. Well, I'm talking to women that are not my girlfriend, my fiance, my wife, my mother. They're going to hear it differently coming from me. Now, if a woman loves you and you're her man and she regards you, you engage her with harshness, she's probably not going to get that message very well. And that's why we talk, you got to have a little bit of ism. You have to know how to approach the woman, knowing that you have to address her emotion, let her know that you care about her, and then deliver the message. It doesn't have to be like the most logical, rational message. You just got to get her across the line. You gotta be like, get her to where the understanding, where she can execute the behaviors that are going to be helpful for your family. So I don't recommend that men be harsh unnecessarily. I recommend that you be a great communicator. A great communicator doesn't speak in the way that you feel is best. You speak in the way that the person can receive your message. And with women, I think typically it's not being harsh. Now, does that mean lie? No, absolutely not. And especially if you're dealing with your main woman, meaning the woman you want to be with, she has to be able to accept your truth, what's real for you. Now, how you package it does matter. Now, there are some times when you ain't got time to, do all this gift wrapping, and a woman should be able to deal with that. But I recommend that men exercise the best in communication. Communication is critical to success. And also that you get with a woman who's not an unruly animal. And the reason that I say that, some of these rascals, these rascals are crazy out here. Like, for example, I had a woman who worked basically kind of like a barista. Is that the people who serve coffee?
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee. Okay, so that's what they're called. Yeah. So she can follow directions from her boss, right? And so I tell her, if I tell you something, sometimes I'll ask you a question. It's very clear. My English is good, so it has a question mark at the end. And then other times I might be dictating. I expect you to comply because I'm great at making decisions and leadership. What's the evidence of that? I've managed corporations that are international with employees across several time zones. I've lived in foreign countries where I don't speak the language. I've still been able to effectively manage a team. You're following one dude who manages 4 people who make coffee.
Yeah.
I manage international high-risk organizations with people from different cultures, languages, and time zones. If you can't listen to me, who can you listen to?
Right.
Like you listen to Joseph the peon at your job, but you can't listen to me?
Yeah.
One, because I'm your man. Forget the fact that I'm an international CEO, just because I'm your man. But secondly, respect the fact that I'm like who I actually am. Which is to say, when I give you some guidance, I'm giving you good guidance. And even if it's not good guidance, here's the funny thing. If it was terrible guidance, if you decide to be with me, you follow it to the road of destruction. Yeah. Right? Like if we're driving and I want to go left and we should go right, we're all going left together. Right? Like we go together. So real, though. That's right. That's part of why you got to mate well. And women knew this beforehand, especially when they had the guidance, I feel like, of their family. Just back in the day before these times, even when the family picked the husband, it's like, because you don't know. Like, I'm literally setting you, like, I'm for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I tell women too, if your family members know better than you and they're like, this is a good guy and he's been in the neighborhood, go with that guy. Stop dating
the other guys. Like, promise you. I heard this quote of women stop falling in love because you keep falling on your face. Grow in love. Pick the best option and grow in love, because you will grow to respect him and he will take care of you, and then you will be madly in love later on. So if that's what you're seeking. Yeah. So I had to, just to add to that. So if you guys enjoyed today's session, you guys can click here to watch another episode. If you guys want to experience one-on-one coaching with me, where I really help people who do struggle with BPD, do struggle with femininity, and do have relationship issues, you guys can click the link in my bio on my YouTube or on my Instagram bio to my Pillar link, and you guys will find one-on-one sessions. I also have ebooks such as How to Magnify the King in Your Husband and I'm the Prize Said Who, which are both self-reflection ebooks that have really saved and helped marriages.